Welcome to the Technology and Energy panel of ISH Digital 2021. Today we've invited some more guests from the heating industry. The topic today is the Green Deal, a central project of the EU. Based on the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement, the Green Deal sets ambitious targets. By 2030, all CO2 emissions are to be reduced by at least 55%, and by 2050, Europe is to be the first climate-neutral continent. Today we'll talk about what role the heating market will play in this. I'd like to welcome my guests to the studio. First, Uwe Glock. He's the president of the Federation of German Heating Industry. Welcome. And Andreas Lücke, Managing Director of the Federation. Welcome. Mr. Lücke, my first question is for you. What impact do the Green Deal's ambitious climate targets actually have on the largest energy consumption sector, the building sector? The building sector is actually critical to the success of the Green Deal. This is simply due to the fact that the building sector accounts for 1/3 of Europe's final energy consumption. The same figure also applies to Germany, by the way. And there are no less than 125 million heating systems supplying 400 million people in Europe with heat, especially on cold winter days. However, 60% of those heating systems are outdated. This means that Europe hasn't yet done its homework in terms of efficiency and climate protection. This is only just beginning. These 60% are old systems that must be removed and replaced by technology that emits less CO2, is more efficient and thus consumes less energy. And these are precisely the kind of things that you can see at ISH Digital, for example, condensing technology in combination with solar thermal energy and heat pumps, which have experienced significant growth, and also wood-fired central heatings and digital systems. Mr. Glock, the Technology and Energy panel is convening under the motto of Green Deal Ready. What exactly does that mean? What can you tell us about that? I'll focus on the German market. The Climate Protection Act originally had a goal of reducing CO2 emissions from 118 million tons to 72 million tons, a target of about 40%. The Green Deal has now increased this target to 55% and made it much stricter. How can this be achieved? On the one hand, through the modernization of the existing installations, especially by moving towards the use of renewable energy sources. These measures could bring about roughly 70% of the reductions. The second part is in the area of building renovations, especially insulation and windows, which should contribute a further 30%. But because of the tightening of the targets to 55%, that won't be enough. We also need to improve the energy mix and use more renewable energies such as hydrogen, biomethane and biomass. You mentioned biomethane and hydrogen. What is the German heating industry doing to establish green gases and green fuels in the market? We'll be presenting a great many different systems at ISH Digital, starting with the classic condensing appliances, not only in their conventional form, but we'll also be introducing H2-ready appliances in the future. These are condensing devices that can be converted to hydrogen at a later date. We'll also be presenting pure 100% hydrogen appliances at ISH Digital. Fuel cell systems in combination with hydrogen will play an increasingly important role in the future. These can produce not only heat, but also electricity, and thus contribute to relieving the electricity grids. An important element in the whole chain is the technology that produces zero emissions when combined with renewable electricity. These are heat pumps, which will play a major role in achieving these goals. Mr. Lücke, not only the ISH is digital this year, building technology is also becoming increasingly networked. What systems exist and what advantages do they offer? Well, Mrs. Evert, 10 years ago I wouldn't have thought the classic German heating industry would ever use digital systems. But it's doing exactly that intensively. There's a real push. This is also because the electrification of the heating market is increasing, of course. For example, the use of heat pumps, which Mr. Glock just mentioned, is increasing steadily, but they need electricity. And then we have the possibility of using photovoltaic systems, which are now very affordable, and using the electricity ourselves, not just feeding it into the grid, as was the case previously. And this can partially supply the heat pump. This is particularly attractive in summer, of course, if the heat pump is set up to be reversible, because then it can also cool, and there's plenty of photovoltaic electricity available. And then there is e-mobility. The German government wants to see 7 million e-cars on the road by 2030, which can then be partially charged with the self-generated photovoltaic power, for example. But for all this, we need an intelligent system in the building. For example, networking and energy management that can read weather data so that you can see when the sun will shine. When is the washing machine switched on? When will the heat pump come on? All this is the subject of the ISH and is now part of the product portfolio of our member companies. Mr. Glock, 2030 is a milestone in the Green Deal, so to speak. How do you see the prospects? What can we achieve by then and how? I'm quite optimistic about that. We have a wide range of technologies, as we've just outlined, in the form of heat pumps, hydrogen solutions, fuel cells and energy management systems. Nevertheless, achieving the targets means that on the one hand we need to increase the building renovation rate from 1 to 2%. But even more important is the obsolete installation stock. We need to increase the rate of replacement of the existing installations from 3% today to 6%. These are very ambitious targets. However, if we look at the last 2 years, we see significant growth. That means we're moving in the right direction. Government support is also important for this, and more specifically, the climate plan needs to be continuously maintained. With this combination of installations and government support, we definitely have a chance of achieving the target. Thank you, gentlemen. We've already reached the end of our program on the EU Green Deal. We've seen that the heating industry is clearly Green Deal ready, offering comprehensive solutions to meet climate targets in the building sector. Further information can be found on the BDH website or the Technology and Energy panel. I'd like to thank you once again and wish you a great ISH Digital 2021.